In less than 3 days, a dream that I've had for longer than I can remember is finally coming true, and that is to go to Paris, France. My husband and I are treating this as kind of a late one-year wedding anniversary trip because our anniversary was a couple months ago, but we knew we wanted to go on some type of big trip to celebrate at some point, and we settled on Paris. And by we settled on Paris, I mean he knew that this has been like such a dream of mine for such a long time that he was just so sweet and basically just really hyped me up and said, yeah babe, let's go to Paris. So I fell for it and that's what we're doing, so whoopsies. But yeah, so I'm so grateful and so excited. But that being said, between 2 10-hour flights, at least 2 8-hour layovers, and hopefully a lot of cafe sitting in between, I'm expecting to have a lot of knitting time. So to prepare for that, I'm going to cast on a completely new project, and I've decided that that project is going to be a Stockholm Sweater V-neck by PetiteKnit. Wrong city, I know, but hear me out. I have already made the regular Stockholm sweater, and I really enjoyed the pattern, but I would like something similar to that in one size up so that I can have like a more loose and relaxed fit that I like better. And I have also knit the Stockholm Slipover V-neck, and I love that thing. I wear that more than I should, probably, like more than I should. So I knit that in 1 strand of fingering and 1 strand of mohair, and it's like decently soft. But for this sweater, I branched out a little bit, and I am trying a completely new yarn to me to see if I can make that lace weight mohair aspect a little bit softer. So the pattern does call for 2 strands of mohair being held together, but I want to knit mine with a fingering and a mohair just because mohair. So anyway, the fingering weight yarn that I'm going with is one that I have knit with to make my Stockholm Slipover V-neck, and that is Sandnes Garn Sunday. This is 100% merino, it is non-superwash, and this is the color code 4343, and I believe this is called Raspberry Sorbet. It's just this really sweet kind, it's definitely a pink, but it's got maybe a little bit of purple in it, and I love this color. So instead of a mohair to pair it with, like I said, was trying to find something a little bit softer and not mohair essentially, and I settled on Lang Alpaca Superlight. So this is a lace weight yarn, and it is 54% superfine alpaca, 24% nylon, and 22% merino wool. And first impressions, it's pretty soft. It's got like a little bit of an artificial feel to it, and I think that's the nylon in it. Like this feels like really good, like this feels very natural. And this feels a little bit like something I would walk by and touch at like a store. Like I would touch in the sweater section at a store, because you know, like most of those are not all natural fibers, but that's okay. I am hoping that when I knit them together, it's just gonna be so delicious, and I'm thinking it'll be really soft. I'm excited. I know for sure it's gonna be softer than mohair, so at this point we're just seeing how much softer. So I bought 4 of these, and actually I got a notification from the yarn store that I bought these from telling me that these are from 2 different dye lots, and they asked me if that was okay before I bought it, but I was completely unwilling to wait for them to get like a whole new shipment in, because then I would have like left already. So I had no time to wait for the same dye lot. And you know, earlier I could see the difference when I was comparing the dye lot numbers, but like when they're all like this, I don't think it'll matter. Plus, when I'm holding it with another strand of yarn, I really don't think it'll matter. hope I don't eat those words, but it'll be fine. And I have 5 of these because this is like a little bit heavier than a lace weight mohair, so there's less yardage in each one. So I am not an expert at calculating how much yardage I'll need for sweaters whenever I'm using yarn not recommended for the pattern. So we'll see if this works out. I picked 4 of these because it took me 2 complete Sundays plus like this much of a third to make my Stockholm Slipover V-neck. And so I'm assuming to make an entire sweater, almost 2 extra balls should be fine, I think. And then this, I just kind of followed the same yardage that this would provide, that 4 of these would give. So we'll see if it works out. I might have to order more when we get home. I don't know. All that being said, I am going to cast this on before I leave for the trip so that I can honestly get as much of it done as possible. Ideally, I would have the entire back panel done and I would have the first like side of the front done. And the reason that I want to do that is because I can't bring scissors with me on the airplane. So whenever I'm done with like this first front side panel, I won't be able to cut the yarn to then pick up stitches for the next side panel. So if I can be completely done with one side and maybe even like already started on the second, that will be perfect. Then all I have to do is knit that and then start knitting the round and we'll be good to go. All right, here we go. I'm gonna go cast on. I'll see you in Paris. Unfortunately, tragedy struck the night before we left and my dog decided to disrespect the knitting basket and unravel an entire ball of yarn. Luckily, it was salvageable, save for a little bit of slobber, and I got to spend part of my evening rewinding the yarn. The next day, we had our first flight and an 8-hour layover, so I got a fair amount of knitting done in the airport. Also, in case you're curious, I had absolutely no issues getting my wooden knitting needles through security at both US airports and Charles de Gaulle in Paris. Then, after an overnight flight, we landed in Paris at about 1 p.m. local time.
Bienvenue à Paris, aéroport Roissy, Charles de Gaulle.
Absolutely massive. Are we in Paris right now?
Paris.
Okay, so we got to our hotel last night, and other than grabbing dinner, we honestly didn't really do much because we were so tired from the flight. So this morning, I would say, started our first official day in Paris, and so we went to this really sweet cafe called Cafe Cassette, I believe, and it was really sweet and had a bunch of flowers everywhere. And now we're back at the hotel doing a quick regroup, and then we're gonna go maybe try the metro, see how that works, and explore a little bit of Paris. And I wanted to update y'all on what I have knit so far. So in addition to the catastrophe that happened the night before we left with my dog unwinding one entire ball of yarn, I severely overestimated how much I could get accomplished in like 2 days worth of knitting, just because I also had to pack and like do other things to get ready for the trip. So this is what I have done so far. It is 10 rows away from having the upper back panel done, and this is not a lot. I was really hoping to have much more than this done, but that's okay. I have all of my, oh, that was another thing too. So I realized yesterday at the airport that I forgot to pack my extra cords with me on my carry-on, so they were in my checked bags anyway, so it would have been really difficult to try to pick up stitches for the shoulders, so it ended up working out. So I'm about 10 rows away from finishing the upper back, and then I'll pick up stitches to do the front sides. And yeah, I don't know where we're gonna go, but hopefully we'll find a good little spot where we can sit down and knit for a while. Tonight we have the soccer game that we're going to, and I don't think they'll let me bring knitting in there, and I don't think my husband would let me bring it either, but so I think where we're going today is the only time that I'll have to knit. And so if today I can get the last 10 rows done, then I think that'll be a really big accomplishment. So Anyway, here we go.
Of course, the first thing we had to do was go see the Eiffel Tower. And y'all, the tower really is something to behold. It looks so much bigger and, dare I say, more impressive in real life because you really can appreciate the scale and complexity of the design. One letdown, however, was that most of the grass was dead and there really was just one section off to the side that was not dirt, so we sat down there and hung out for a while. We spent the rest of our day walking down the Champs-Élysées where we saw the Arc de Triomphe, and honestly, not going to the top of this is my one regret from the trip. After fueling up at the nicest Five Guys I have ever been to, we made our way to the Paris-Marseille soccer game. Little side story here, when going through security, the guy looks at me and says, "Sec?" But my English-speaking brain hears sock, so I reach down and start pulling up the leg of my jeans to show this guy my socks, and he immediately goes, no, bag, in English. Y'all, I have taken too many French classes for that to have happened, so that one got me. Anyway, the stadium was more hype than any sporting event I have ever been to because the audience never stopped chanting and cheering. After a late night, we were up bright and early Monday morning to be at the Louvre for when it opened. Once we got in, we just followed the sea of people rushing toward one very specific room, and we got to behold the Mona Lisa. The stories are true, this is much smaller in real life, but still incredible. Absolutely no knitting was done on this excursion, but I couldn't help but share these little snippets of this incredible place. On Tuesday, we did a walking food tour and got to explore the area around Notre Dame. Unfortunately, the inside of the Notre Dame is still closed from the 2019 fire, but they have some bleachers set up in front of it, so we sat down and admired it for a while. Right across the river is a bookstore called Shakespeare & Company, and this was the one place I really wanted to visit. You're not allowed to film inside, but it was super sweet and definitely lives up to the hype. But let's be honest, what bookstore isn't incredible? Then, to wrap up this day, we journeyed over to a yarn store called Lil Weasel. The store is separated into two parts with yarn in both parts. I recognized most of the brands, so it was really nice to actually feel the yarn to see how soft or scratchy it really is. I'll share at the end of this video what I got here. The next day was Versailles, and I don't mean to rock the boat here, but even though the palace was gorgeous, it was really hard to enjoy because of all the people crammed into each narrow hallway, and this felt completely unavoidable because the only way out was forward. However, once we got into the gardens, it was a much better experience. I think we need one.
One what?
One this. We ended the day by visiting the Luxembourg Gardens, which was only a 3-minute walk from where we stayed, and my absolute favorite thing was all the little kids who were super excited to push these little sailboats around. I got to sit down and knit for a while, and then we actually ended the day by seeing the Eiffel Tower at night. Thursday was the last day that we had any official plans, and we visited Musée d'Orsay. This was my absolute favorite museum we visited because it wasn't super crowded and it had just enough to see that you didn't get overwhelmed. Plus, I just absolutely adore Impressionism. I am back in the Luxembourg Gardens for the day, for a little bit today, and I just wanted to give a quick update on how much of the sweater I have knit so far. So I have the entire back panel done, the left front shoulder, and I'm about halfway done with the right front shoulder. And honestly, this is where I was hoping to be before we even left for the trip, but that's okay. It's been good to have this to knit on. And And I am actually really excited though to kind of be done with the more complicated part to just start knitting in the round. Unfortunately, Spencer is sick, so he is back at the hotel sleeping. So I have honestly as much time as I want to sit here and knit and yeah, just really enjoy myself, enjoy the gardens, and enjoy our second to last day in Paris. Tomorrow is our last full day and we fly out on a Saturday. So it's been good, but I'm excited to have some time to just sit here and knit, and yeah, it's been good. Right after I stopped filming, the kindest lady came up to me and asked about my knitting. She noticed that I knit English style and said she knits the same way, so we talked about that and our different projects for just a few minutes. This was my first time meeting a fellow knitter out in public because I honestly don't knit in public as often as I should, but it was super lovely talking to her, and I hope to meet more people like her in the future. For our last full day in Paris, we made the hike up to the Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre, and this was Spencer and I's favorite day because it was raining ever so slightly, so the atmosphere was very Parisian as we overlooked the city. That night, we found a pool table to hang out at for a bit, and then the next morning, we said goodbye to Paris.
Hello, we are back home in Tennessee, and I wanted to wrap up this little knitting vlog by showing y'all how much I was actually able to get done on the trip and show you the couple things that I got at the yarn store that we went to in Paris. So, to start, I basically, before we left, I was able to cast on the back panel of the sweater and knit about 20 rows, and then that was it. So I had like this much of like a strip done, and that was it. And by the time, this is, okay, so including the traveling there, the week actually in Paris, and then the traveling home, I was able to knit this much. So yeah, honestly, this is where I was hoping the sweater would be before I even left for Paris, so I could like have almost a completely finished object in Paris. But life happens, your dog unravels your yarn, what do you do? So I honestly think for a week full of very full days, I was able to get a lot of knitting done. I am very, very impressed with myself, especially since I'm such a slow knitter. Yeah, this is about it. I have started the second ball of the Sunday, and I just started my third ball of the, what is this? The Lang Alpaca. So yeah, honestly, the Lang Alpaca is not going as far as I thought it would, but that's fine. I think I'm definitely going to have to knit the sleeves and the neckline before I finish the body, just to make sure I don't run out. But yeah, pretty good. I do want to say one thing about the yarn. My biggest complaint, well, two things about it. It's very thick and thin. I might like see if I can hold this up to the camera, but like it's got, I don't know if you can see that, but it is very much like thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin. And so that's a little annoying, because when you go to pick up your stitch, like sometimes you get a thick section and I feel like I'm almost splitting the yarn, like having to knit through that like really, really fuzzy section. So that's a little interesting. And then also, I have knit with the Sandnes Garn Sunday before, so I know it's not this guy's fault, but I noticed I had the slightest little callus on my thumb from knitting with this, and I only felt it, like it only hurt a little bit when I was purling. And so now that I've started working in the round, I haven't noticed it, it's not a problem. But I guess like when I purl, I really rub the yarn against my thumb, and I developed like a little callus there. It was kind of weird, and it made it a little uncomfortable to knit with. So I think it's this guy's fault. Anyway, so all that to say, unless the sweater itself turns out spectacular, and I love the fabric and it's gorgeous, I probably won't be knitting with this Lang Alpaca Superlight again. It was definitely fun to try. It was pretty cheap. I don't remember exactly, I'll have to look it up. But I don't think I'll be knitting with it again. But it's okay, you know, that's part of knitting. It's just like trial and error, right? So anyway, that is that. And then the last thing I want to show y'all is basically what I got at Little Weasel. I heard of this store from Tiffany at Typical Bliss, and I was really excited to go to it. And like she said, it is basically a yarn store that's divided on like two parts of a hallway. And so just like a little corner over here, and then like a little slightly bigger store over here. And it was a mix of like yarn and fabrics and ribbons and everything. It was really, really cute. And what I ended up getting is this. This is Miss Lamotte, and it is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. The colorway is called Dutch Still Life. I was really drawn to the speckles. I have to admit, I felt a little rushed in there because I had my husband with me. We had walked all over Paris that day We were very tired, and so bless him for being a trooper for like taking an extra, it was like 45 minutes between like the train and walking to find this store, so bless him for being a trooper and like even giving me the time that he did. But I did feel a little rushed, so I kind of like grabbed this and left, and honestly I'm okay with it though. It's really beautiful. I knew I just wanted some yarn from Paris, right? Now this is actually not dyed in Paris. It said it is produced in South Africa, but I can't get this where I live, so I thought that counted. And I was really drawn to the speckles. Originally I wanted to make this out of I wanted to make socks, but then when I got back to the hotel and I read the label and I held it up against the Sunday that I was working with, and I was like, wait, this is a little thicker than Sunday, which is a fingering weight. So I looked up the yardage, and this is a sport weight yarn. And I was not expecting that because I don't keep like the yardage in my brain. That's just, I don't know, like 360 meters per 100 grams. Like that means nothing to me, unfortunately, at this point in time. I should probably learn, but yeah, so come to find out it's a sport weight yarn, which is cool, but I have no idea what to do with sport weight yarn. So if y'all have any suggestions for what to do with 100 grams of a sport weight yarn, I am so open to it. I was thinking maybe a hat because I'm not sure how white socks would do for my lifestyle. So I was thinking a hat would be really sweet, but every hat pattern that I've looked up, which is only like 3 hat patterns, calls for like a DK weight, and it calls for more than 100 grams. So I don't know. Please, I need help. Please. But anyway, it's really so soft. It's so soft. That's honestly 90% why I grabbed it. So I was thinking, I don't know what to do with it. It's beautiful. This is the first thing I'd ever bought and had no idea what it was going to become. So it's a little nerve-wracking. So I need a little help there, guys. Anyway, last thing, I also got some needles at Little Weasel because for the Stockholm Sweater V-neck, the V-neck part requires 3mm needles, and I do not own 3mm needles at this point. So I got some, and I got Chow-gu, which is really cool. I have heard so much about these. I'm very curious to see how I like them with the, you know, kind of iconic red cord. This is the 14-inch or 35 centimeters. They have weird increments, so I feel like every standard like cord size like starts at like 16 inches, but this is 14. I was looking for a 16-inch, but I was like, this is close enough. I hope it's fine. And then I got the 3mm needle tips to put on them. So anyway, I think these are gonna be nice. I'm really excited to use them. And I have been keeping them in this little box that I got from the macaroon store. So this is Pierre Hermé, which our food tour guide said was the best macaroon, like these are the best macaroons in all of Paris. So we got some to bring home to our family members, and I kept the box. So I've been keeping my my short needles in here. So the box is kind of hard to open, so you can't be in a rush if you need something, but it's really pretty and reminds me of our trip. So anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for following along and coming to Paris with me and knitting along. It was such a beautiful trip. It really was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of adventure and experience, and we are so blessed, and I'm so grateful to have been able to go and experience that. But yeah, it was a really good time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.